crazy to me, man. Caitlin Clark minding her own business, going to Nike headquarters, shooting from anywhere from the steps. And I just got to be honest with you, man. To me, I don't think Caitlin give two flying about Unrivaled, bro. I just got to be honest. Now, there's people in the media trying to say that Unrivaled is failing due to Caitlin. No, they're failing because a product.
Look at that energy. That's not just another WNBA commentator talking about ratings. That's someone who's been watching this pattern play out for months. And he's finally seeing the mainstream media admit what everyone else already knew. ESPN just published an article that changes the entire narrative around Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. And the timing, that's what makes this interesting.
Now, with that being said, man, I want to share something here with you guys. And that is ESPN putting out an article and pretty much detailing that Caitlin Clark is single-handedly the driving force behind everything that is surrounding the WNBA for now and possibly the foreseeable future. Shout out to the homeboy Mike. He said ESPN finally admits Caitlin Clark is driving force behind the rise in sports and only took 2 seasons. Now, the fanfare Caitlin Clark received from college carried over to the W.
Here's what ESPN finally put in writing. Caitlin Clark is the singular driving force behind the WNBA's 2024 success. Not one of several factors, not part of a collective rise, the driving force. The article specifically states that while Angel Reese and Paige Buchan brought significant followings, it was Clark who functioned as the rising tide that lifted all boats. And that phrase right there, that specific maritime metaphor, that's what's causing problems. Because while ESPN is publishing this acknowledgement, Unrivaled, the new 3-on-3 league that launched in January 2025, is struggling with viewership numbers that tell a very different story about what happens when you don't have that rising tide.
Or the most viewed in 25 years. Now, mind you, bruh, this only happens because Caitlin Clark is attached to it. WNBA would not have seen the most viewership in Hellas if Caitlin Clark was not part of it. One person said, "Thank you, ESPN Hoops." Another one said, "We're still doing the lifting of all boats gimmick in 2026. They drilled holes in the boats, you idiots. They definitely drill holes in the boats."
The 2024 WNBA Finals between the New York Liberty and Minnesota Lynx drew the highest viewership in 25 years. That's a quarter century. The last time WNBA Finals pulled those numbers, Caitlin Clark was 2 years old. And here's the specific detail that matters. This happened during Clark's rookie season. In a final series, she wasn't even playing in. That's the evidence ESPN is finally acknowledging. The league didn't just improve incrementally. It didn't gradually build momentum over several seasons. It exploded in 1 year. And that year directly corresponds with one player's entry into the league.
WNBA has had Angels and Paiges before, but never a Caitlin. Say that again. They have had Angels and Caitlins before, but never a Michael Jeffrey Jordan from Iowa, bruh. Caitlin is equivalent to having a Michael Jordan, bruh. And the fanfare perspective, plenty of room for them all, bruh. Sort, them whole thing is a sickness. The thrill is gone. The thrill is definitely much diminishing, but I think Caitlin Clark hype is only growing. I just got to be honest. I've been following this thing for a little minute now since she was at Iowa. I've been one of the only creators that been here since Iowa, bruh. I've been here since Iowa, bruh. Whole lot of these people ain't been here since Iowa, bruh, but to each his own.
Now let's talk about what's happening right now in the off-season. Caitlin Clark is at Nike headquarters, shooting from the logo, working on her signature shoe line. Meanwhile, Unrivaled is playing games with significantly lower viewership than projected, and some media members are trying to frame Unrivaled's struggles as somehow connected to Clark's absence. But here's the thing they're missing. Clark never committed to Unrivaled. She never teased joining. She never gave them reason to build projections around her participation. Unrivaled made their own business decisions, set their own expectations, and now they're dealing with their own results. That's not a Caitlin Clark problem. That's a product problem. The comparison he makes about A'ja Wilson's signature shoes, that's pointed, and it's backed by observable reality. When's the last time you saw an NBA player warming up in A'ja Wilson's shoes? When's the last time you saw Steph Curry, who has his own signature line, with Under Armour, choose to wear another WNBA player's shoes? The answer tells you everything about market penetration and cultural impact.
We all knew Caitlin Clark was the person that drove up the viewership, man. Now, this article came out from Yahoo Sports. Rachel Demeanor went in on them the other day. And to me, it's kind of unfair, man, that, you know, Rachel get all the clout, but you got people like Ben Daniel and many other people that goes in on the WNBA, but she the one who get the clout when other reporters put this out first. But to each his own. You know, to each his own over here, man. But the WNBA's new collective bargaining agreement rectified in December 2025 and effective this year flips the script. Maximum contracts.
The new WNBA collective bargaining agreement, ratified in December 2025, restructures the entire salary framework. Maximum contracts now exceed $1 million. With potential earnings reaching 1.3 to 2 million when revenue sharing kicks in once average salaries climb above. That's a massive jump from the previous structure. And here's what's not being said directly, but everyone understands. This CBA negotiation happened in the immediate aftermath of the Caitlin Clark effect on 2024 attendance and viewership. The league saw what one transcendent player could do for revenue, and the players' union leveraged that evidence to negotiate better terms across the board. That's literally the rising tide lifting all boats. But it only works if the tide actually shows up.
They tried to destroy Caitlin Clark. To me, I think the fans, like many others, are vowing to make the WNBA feel it. I believe that's what this season is going to be about. If we have a season, I believe a lot of fans, like myself and many others, are vowing to make the WNBA feel it. We all remember the Sheldon incident. We all remember the Kennedy Carter incident. We all remember Skylar Diggins-Smith incidents. There's a lot of incidents, that Caitlin Clark name was attached to. Not because she was a bad person, not because, you know what I'm saying, she did something to their mama, relatives or something, simply because she came into the league with her own fan base and they did not like it.
Now we're getting to the core issue, and this is where the ESPN article becomes more than just belated acknowledgement. This is about the treatment Caitlin Clark received during her rookie season, and whether the league and its existing players recognized what they had. Let's go through the specific incidents, because they matter individually and they matter as a pattern. The Kennedy Carter hip check in June 2024, flagrant contact, no basketball play, and the initial response from players around the league ranged from dismissive to supportive of Carter. Dejanai Carrington later posted laughing emojis in response to the incident. The Skylar Diggins-Smith situation, where an established veteran made comments that many interpreted as dismissive of Clark's impact and the attention she was receiving. The dark side comment situation, where Clark's own fan base was characterized in explicitly negative terms by people within the WNBA ecosystem. Each incident individually could be explained away. Collectively, they form a pattern that a lot of fans haven't forgotten. And more importantly, they're not going to forget just because ESPN finally published what everyone already knew.
That's what all of this boils down to. I believe that's what all of this is jealousy, jealous women. Charles Barkley said it. And quite frankly, I have to agree. You know, all of this stimulated for them being jealous of Caitlin Clark for no reason whatsoever. She shined on a basketball court. She's shining now when it ain't no basketball, and everybody else is on ice. Everybody's on ice. Hell, even Paige is on ice. All of them. Angel Reese is really on ice. Caitlin Clark is still shining. And I can tell you one thing. The WNBA could be canceled today. And guess whose name still gonna be shining? Ain't it a beautiful thing when you're shining? Caitlin Clark. Yes, it is, bruh. And that's...
Charles Barkley called it jealousy. He said it on national television, and he said it plainly. Jealous women were targeting Caitlin Clark because she came into the league with her own fan base, and they didn't like it. That's a strong claim from someone with no stake in WNBA politics, no reason to manufacture controversy, and decades of credibility in reading NBA locker room dynamics. When someone like Barkley makes that assessment, it carries weight because he's seen this pattern play out in men's basketball. He knows what it looks like when established players resent a rookie's attention and popularity. And here's what makes the jealousy angle particularly relevant to this ESPN article. If the league and its players had embraced the Caitlin Clark phenomenon from day one, if they'd recognized immediately what she represented for the WNBA's growth, the 2024 season could have been even bigger. Instead, a significant portion of the season's narrative got consumed by manufactured controversy and negative interactions that turned off casual fans who were tuning in specifically to watch Clark play. The league still had a record-breaking year, but it left money and momentum on the table because of how Clark was received by parts of the WNBA ecosystem.
That's how I feel. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel right now. You know, the channel's going through some things. Our views suck ass right now, but guess what? We still shining. We still shining because with or without the WNBA, we're still gonna be shining. It's a beautiful thing, man. So I know exactly what Caitlin Clark is experiencing. You know, the product may be bad, everything may be going wrong, but guess what? Us, the person, we still shining. Get down in the comment section. Let me know y'all thoughts about this one, man. Keep them bells on. I will be back with another video.
And this is where we are right now. The WNBA is in its off-season. Unrivaled is playing games. And Caitlin Clark is still the one generating headlines. Still the one creating content that people want to consume. Still the one whose name drives engagement even when there's no WNBA basketball being played. She's at Nike headquarters working on her signature shoe. She's doing promotional work. She's staying in the public eye without needing a league around her to create that visibility. That's what transcendent athletes do. They exist beyond the structure of their league. They become cultural figures, not just sports figures. Meanwhile, players who are participating in Unrivaled, who are playing competitive basketball right now in January 2025, aren't generating anywhere near the same level of interest or engagement. And that's not a criticism of their talent. It's an observation about market reality and cultural impact. Here's what makes the ESPN article significant beyond just being a belated acknowledgement of obvious reality. For an entire season, there was a media narrative that tried to distribute credit for the WNBA's 2024 success across multiple players and factors. Angel Reese got positioned as an equal rival. The rookie class as a whole got credit. The league's marketing efforts got praised, and all of those things contributed something. But ESPN just published an article that uses the phrase driving force specifically about Caitlin Clark. That's not collaborative language. That's not one of several important factors, language. That's singular attribution. And it matters because ESPN is the WNBA's primary broadcast partner. They have every incentive to promote the league broadly, to build up multiple stars, to create narratives that don't depend entirely on one player. And even with all those incentives pointing toward a more distributed narrative, they still published an article that says Caitlin Clark was the driving force. That tells you the evidence became impossible to ignore. The 2024 WNBA Finals ratings were the highest in 20. Those finals didn't include Caitlin Clark. The Indiana Fever got eliminated in the first round, and the finals still drew record viewership because the entire season had elevated the league's profile to a point where casual fans stayed engaged even after Clark's team was done playing. That's what a rising tide actually looks like. It's not just about the games one player participates in, it's about how that player's presence changes the entire ecosystem, raises the floor for everyone, brings in viewers who then discover other players and teams and storylines. But here's the uncomfortable question that the ESPN article raises without directly asking, what happens if that tide recedes? The new CBA guarantees higher salaries. Expansion teams are being discussed. The league is making business decisions based on 2024 revenue and projections that assume continued growth. But all of that growth traces back to one player's impact, and if that player gets injured, or if fan enthusiasm diminishes because of how she was treated, or if the next season doesn't deliver the same compelling storylines, what happens to those projections? The Unrivaled situation offers a preview. You build a league, you get good players to participate, you secure broadcast deals, you market aggressively, but if you don't have that transcendent talent that casual fans specifically tune in to watch, your viewership numbers reflect that absence. Unrivaled isn't failing because it's poorly run. It's underperforming expectations because it doesn't have the one player who's proven she can drive casual viewership. And the WNBA needs to understand that same dynamic applies to their league. Caitlin Clark isn't just another good player who happens to be popular. She's the specific reason millions of people who'd never watched women's basketball before are now watching women's basketball. Take her out of the equation, through injury or retirement or fan backlash over how she was treated, and you don't just lose her individual contribution, you lose the casual audience she brought with her. That's why the incidents from her rookie season matter beyond just being unfortunate moments. The Kennedy Carter hip check, the dismissive comments from veterans, the dark side characterization of her fan base, each of those moments told casual fans that the WNBA didn't actually want them there, that they were interlopers, that their interest in Caitlin Clark specifically, rather than women's basketball, generally made them somehow suspect. And a lot of those fans heard that message. They're still watching Caitlin Clark, but their relationship with the broader WNBA, with other players and teams, got damaged in ways that the league is going to have to actively repair. The jealousy angle that Charles Barkley identified, that's not just a personal dynamic between players, it's a business problem. Because when established players resent the rookie who's driving all the attention, and they express that resentment through on-court targeting or dismissive media comments, they're actively working against their own financial interest. The rising tide that lifts all boats only works if you don't drill holes in the boat out of spite. ESPN's article acknowledges Caitlin Clark as the driving force, but it also uses that rising tide metaphor that suggests everyone benefited equally. And that's where the narrative still needs correction. Everyone didn't benefit equally. Caitlin Clark brought attention to the league. Some players and teams capitalized on that attention effectively. Others actively pushed back against it, resented it, tried to diminish. The players and teams that embraced the moment, that recognized what was happening and adjusted accordingly, they're the ones who actually rode that rising tide. The ones who spent the season complaining about coverage disparity, or targeting Clark physically, or dismissing her impact, they left money on the table. They had an opportunity to build their own brands in the wake of increased attention to the league. And instead, they spent their energy being resentful. Looking ahead to the 2025 season, the question becomes whether the league and its players learned anything from. Do they understand now what they have in Caitlin Clark? Do they recognize that protecting and promoting their biggest star is in everyone's financial interest? Or are we going to see another season of manufactured controversy and negative interactions that turn off the casual fans who drove those record ratings? The new CBA guarantees higher salaries, but those guarantees are sustainable if revenue continues to grow. And revenue only continues to grow if viewership stays elevated. And viewership only stays elevated if the product is compelling and if the league doesn't actively alienate the fan base that showed up in. ESPN finally admitted what everyone already knew. Caitlin Clark is the driving force behind the WNBA's recent success. Now the question is whether the league itself will act on that acknowledgement, or whether we're going to see another season where the biggest star gets treated like an inconvenient complication rather than the foundation everything else is built on. Because here's the reality check. Caitlin Clark doesn't need the WNBA as much as the WNBA needs Caitlin Clark. She's got a signature shoe deal with Nike. She's got endorsement opportunities that extend far beyond basketball. She's got a cultural profile that exists independently of the league. If the WNBA disappeared tomorrow, Caitlin Clark would still be fine. She'd find other ways to leverage her platform and her talent. But if Caitlin Clark disappeared from the WNBA tomorrow, through injury or retirement, or deciding the environment isn't worth the hassle, the league would immediately feel that absence in their viewership numbers, their attendance figures, their sponsorship deals, and their media coverage. That's not an opinion. That's what the data from 2024 demonstrates. And it's what the Unrivaled situation is demonstrating right now in real time. Build a league without that transcendent talent, and you get viewership numbers that reflect that absence. So when ESPN publishes an article calling Caitlin Clark the driving force behind the WNBA's rise, that's not just belated acknowledgement, that's a statement about the league's fundamental business reality. And everyone involved, from league executives to players to media members, needs to understand what that reality means for how they approach the 2025 season and beyond. The rising tide metaphor only works if you don't actively work against the tide. And the WNBA spent too much of 2024 working against its own best interests. The question is whether they learned from that mistake or whether we're about to watch them repeat it. What do you think happens next season? Does the league protect its biggest star, or do we see more of the same treatment that defined her rookie year? Drop your predictions in the comments, hit that like button if this analysis made sense to you, and subscribe because we're going to be covering every development as the 2025 season approaches. The WNBA just got handed a blueprint for success. Let's see if they actually follow it.